Now I must say this from the start. I am not a manga guy, but I know the quality of a manga when I read one. And Inio Asano makes great mangas. I will go as far as to say that he is one of the best mangakas of our generation. It's actually insane how sort of underground he feels. It's not that I've read every single piece of work that he's ever created, right? Because again, I'm not a manga guy. But I've read / watched 3 of his magnum opuses: Soranin, Oyasumi Punpun, and Dead Dead Demons Dedede the Destruction. There are some similarities in these works, but Dedede, Soranin, and Oyasumi Punpun are very different from each other when it comes to theme, when it comes to style, when it comes to the plot. But nonetheless, these 3 works are great for their respective reasons. Soranin is a slice of life / drama manga. It follows Meiko, who is 25, recently quit her job and is trying to find meaning in her life. Meiko's got a boyfriend called Taneda, who is in this band, who's trying to make it big with his band. As they both are all lovey-dovey and try to figure out what do they do with their lives in their 20s. As a side note, do not watch the live action. As per usual with, live action adaptations, they're just not that good. It sucks so bad it's sort of ridiculous. Oyasumi Punpun is a depression fest. The manga follows Punpun, who is in love with this girl Aiko. Punpun is represented by this bird thing, who in the manga doesn't speak. He's an introvert to an extreme. It's to the point where it's sort of his downfall. His life sucks. Everyone in his life sucks. It's just a depression fest, but it's fun to read. Dedede is a sci-fi / slice of life anime. We mainly focus on Kadobe and Ontan, who lives in Tokyo, who has this giant spaceship above it. The show has 2 plot lines going on. The first plot line, Kadobe and Ontan transitioning from high school into young adults and experiencing life. The other plotline is this looming threat of human extermination and everything in between. When it comes to the style, at first I couldn't believe the guy who made Soranin is the same guy who made Oyasumi Punpun and Dedede. Soranin's art style is very grounded. It's not as artistic as Dedede or Oyasumi Punpun. It has a lot of hand-drawn backgrounds that come from real life. It's to the point where it sort of seems like Asano sort of just drew a photograph. It keeps the story feel realistic and relatable to a sense. Soranin, in my opinion, is the funniest manga out there, and the comedy mostly comes from visual comedy. The band members Taneda, Kato, and Billy, they are some of the most silliest goofball in all of manga. Again, going back to the live action, you can't really do in a live action because, you can't just turn them into Looney Tunes characters. They have flesh. Asano's has a very distinct character art style. They don't look really cute, but they look real. They have a lot of little details in them. Oyasumi Punpun, on the other hand, is, I think, one of the most artistic mangas I've ever seen, honestly. For fuck's sake, they got a bird that turns into a pyramid, that turns into a thing with 3 eyes, and turns into the devil itself. Obviously, canon Punpun is not, a bird. He's obviously just a random dude. But there's a reason why Asano draws Punpun a different way. The difference in how Asano draws Punpun reflects on the life arc Punpun is on. The other characters in Punpun sort of vary in style. You got the Punpun family, sort of similar to how Punpun is drawn. Bird people, essentially. You got the uncle with the glasses and the mom with the tits. There are some other few characters that sort of just look silly. But most of the characters sort of look like how Asano drew characters in Soranin. Again, like real people, not necessarily cute. Essentially, what I'm saying, it's not really marketable, if we're being straightforward about it. This manga, Oyasumi Punpun, has some really, really artistic panels that try to portray, the complicated emotions of people. He has some interesting imagery that he has going on, that if I was Japanese, I feel like I would probably get more. But, I mean, I know, this doll thing needs, resilience or something. He also has this thing called a poop god or Punpun's god. He has these gods that it looks very out of place in the manga, but damn it, he draws them very well in very, very good spots. The panels just look really, really good when the gods are around. There's similarities between Sarunin and Oyasumi Punpun. They have a lot of like black panels that the character narrates over. Sarunin is very retrospective. That's most of the black panels come from Meiko, and Punpun doesn't speak in the manga, so most of the thoughts of Punpun we get from these black panels. Dedede is similar when it comes to the backgrounds, but besides that, is artistically very different between Punpun and Sarunin. The main artistic difference is in Dedede is its character design. Dedede's character just look silly, and I personally love it. And I know most people find it sort of off-putting, but I find it sort of endearing. Like the big brother looking like a corn dog and the Minister of Defense looking like a peach. 80% of the characters in Dedede just look silly. The two main characters, Kadobi and Antan, are probably Asano's first try on cute anime girls. Antan is cute and moe, and Kadobi as well. I honestly think the reason why Dedede is getting an adaptation is because the main characters are actually cute, unlike his other two mangas. Dedede is also very brutal. Like, they do not hold back when shit hits the fan, when things are getting killed and shot down. When it comes to the plot, they can't be any more different. Now, I must preface this, major spoilers, right? Because if I'm gonna talk about these three great works, I gotta talk about the whole thing. I can't leave out some bits here and there. So again, big spoiler warning here. So Sarunin is a slice of life anime. The first half, about two people who are just tired of living this adult life, having responsibilities, a steady job, a boring life ahead of them, and they just decide to go all in, try to make their dreams into a reality. You know, even though they weren't meant to live the life of that dream, they give it a solid try. You know, the first part of the story really, really did resonate with me. You know, as a person who is getting close to their age and has a passion, a side project, and really, really do want to succeed in it, some part of me want to quit my job and spend the next 3 or 4 months just uploading like a madman. You know, I know deep down inside, there's a very small chance I would succeed. Whether it's the lack of talent or simply the lack of luck, but I know that simply trying would be so liberating. I'm sure that the idea of going gung-ho and quitting your job and pursuing your passion project is in so many people's heads in their 20s. And I feel like Sarunin in that sense is a very, very relatable manga. The plot sort of shifts. The second part of the story is the idea of moving on from a person after being in such a committed relationship. So Sarunin is a slice of life anime. There is that big twist in the middle with Taneda dying. And people in dying isn't really typical to slice of life animes. People dying, stuff like that happens in life. You know, life is anything but predictable. People come and go in the most unpredictable ways. Yeah, Meiko, gets a job as a florist and meets this kid, Ohashi. He's an 18-year-old kid who has a crush on Meiko. Ohashi sees Meiko as this calm lady who, at the outside, looks like she has her life together. When in reality, Meiko's, sort of a mess. She thinks of herself as a child with childish behaviors, still very messed up after Taneda's death. Meiko, although she doesn't realize it until like the very last chapter, is an adult and emotionally grown up. The fact that she could put on an adult face is honestly probably what growing up is all about. And Ohashi is just an innocent soul, right? The kid just loves Meiko for the most purest reasons. I feel like in another life where the timing is a little bit better, I think Meiko and Ohashi would probably worked out. And also, Billy. I love Billy. Billy, for the longest time, had a crush on Meiko, but doesn't do anything because of Taneda, essentially blocking his path to Meiko. Even after his death, you could clearly see that Billy still feels some type of way for Meiko. Billy's always the first person to check up on Meiko. I think Billy realized that he can't go gung-ho about his feelings because it wouldn't just be right. Like, in a way, he was probably the most emotionally well put together in the whole group. He knew that he was never going to be the main character of this story, and had the humility to sort of just stayed as Mako's friend. And I sort of feel like Mako sort of knew Billy's feeling, but sort of just kept it silent. I think that's the reason why Mako sees Billy as such a great guy, because Billy doesn't put Mako in the spot of whether to choose Billy as a friend or as a potential partner. Honestly, Punpun is different from Sorenin. Again, it is depression overload. Punpun is a character that you can't root for because he constantly makes terrible decisions. You can't also necessarily hate him because he lives such a shitty life that you can't help to sort of sympathize with the guy. You know, there's a bunch of side stories with Punpun's mom being a whore and ended up being a decent person after meeting Punpun's like long lost elementary friend, and his uncle and his relationship with this waiter girl that he cheats on, and obviously the poop god saga that I feel like was sort of unnecessary in the end. The plot, whether it's the main one or about the uncle, is again depression overload. The character have development and regression, and then a little bit of development and then more regression. It is that brutal back and forth that I think a lot of people like. You know, there's a reason why Osumi Punpun has that reputation of being one of the most depressing mangas of all time. But I think depression is not really the right word to use. I sort of see it as disappointing. Not in the sense that this manga didn't live up to my expectations of the great Oyasumi Punpun, but how the characters show some development occasionally, then out of their own violations or Poop God himself takes 2 steps back and ruin it all over again. I was honestly so disappointed when the uncle cheated on his fiance. I was thinking like, why? How did he even cheat on his fiance? Like, what was he honestly thinking? And his aunt doing the deed with Punpun is such a like, what is going on? Like, at the moment I thought it was like sort of hot, but like it was messy. Stuff like that isn't really sad. It was more disappointing. The main story of Punpun, if you look at it in a broad sense, is a very simple concept. It is a story about a person deteriorating over time. Let something as pure as just simply loving someone take over his life, essentially ruin his life. And to be fair to Punpun, he has no one. He has no friends at school. He's mostly unattached to his mother, to his uncle. He was emotionally attached to his father, but his mother got divorced. I was super shocked on how Punpun ended, considering that the manga's climax was that brutal and that depressing. I couldn't even imagine a happy ending after something like that. Maybe it was Poop God himself throwing him a bone or something, but it feels like it's deserving. Like, I feel like Punpun sort of deserves a good ending. You know, Punpun finally breaks through that emotional barrier and finally makes friends that generally can tolerate him, that he enjoys their company. You know, it might not be the best ragtag group of all time, but Punpun has finally made an emotional attachment with some people. And I think that just because of that, it deserves a little reward in the form of a happy ending. Dende is actually fun. The plot follows Kadobe and Antan, who are in high school. When a giant spaceship appears in Tokyo, the spaceship initially arrived, people panicked and got killed. You know, most people understand that the idea of human extermination is upon them. And hell, we as an audience is like given text that the world is about to die in X days. But in the show, there's 2 perspectives that the characters take approaching the immense doom of the world. The first is to not mind it and just to live on. This is the perspective that Kadobe and Antan take. They continue to graduate high school, they get into romances, take field trips, as the world beyond them slowly dissembles. The second and more reasonable perspective is to be very aware of the situation. You know, at the beginning of the series, we get to know Kadobe's mom. And Kadobe's mom is panicking and arguing to Kadobe that they should move out of the city. And Kadobe doesn't want to move out of Tokyo because, you know, it's Tokyo and her life is in Tokyo. You know, Antan is in Tokyo, Kadobe's crush, the teacher, is in Tokyo. Isopion is in Tokyo. We as an audience initially thought that the mother was the crazy one. You know, the one that overthinks, the one that who is the loudest is tend to be the wrong one. But I guess looking back at it, she was probably the most sane character in the whole show. She understands that the idea of a spaceship potentially that could destroy the whole city in mere seconds is a massive problem. She understands the fact that the government is not to be trusted in these type of situations, because these types of situations indicate everybody is there in it for themselves. Honestly, it's such a clever way to write a character. You write them as the stereotypical psycho mom who screams wolf, but at the end of the day, she's the most in touch with the situation that they're on. I guess the moral of the story that Inio Asano is trying to tell is to listen to the homeless person that tells you that the end is near or something. The show thematically has two sides, right? Comedy and a slice of life side that's filled with people who just simply do not care about the world ending. And the other side, that sci-fi action you see with the government slowly turning away from its people. You see insurgents slowly rising up, a mass protest for the truth, and of course the brutal genocide you see of these poor little guys just getting gunned down by M4s. The imagery here again is so brutal. Now, without context, right? You see these cute little invaders getting shot down and falling down thousands of feet from the air. It looks sort of a bit plain without context. When you give in context that these people are cognizant beings with families, with emotions, essentially in the show, more human than the humans itself in this anime, it's a very, very brutal sight. They never did anything wrong. Anton and Kadobe is absolute. In the show, we see 3 dimensions, right? The first one where Kadobe didn't make it that far. The second one where the world gets murked. And the third one is the good ending. The common denominator between these 3 dimensions is that Kadobe and Anton's friendship is absolute. They are honestly such a good duo, right? They grow from each other. They see the good and the bad from each other. They are very, very dependent of each other. One of the most funniest moments in the whole anime is when Kadobe is embarrassed on how her mother reacted on Anton's car, right? And Kadobe, sort of looks down, sort of feels sad, while Anton is just playing with this blowy thing. It shows that Anton just doesn't care for Kadobe's apology. She essentially sees it as so unnecessary that she finds it boring. Even though Kadobe becomes a serial killer who has a skewed vision of justice, or even though Anton admits as straightforward as possible that she has single-handedly destroyed the world and killed everyone in Tokyo, including her teacher boyfriend and Anton's whole family. Even after the sci-fi theme has completely gone out of control and took over the slice of life bit, they will continue to be friends. Honestly, I think Dead Day is a 10 out of 10 anime, and one of the greatest animes of all time, and I don't mean that lightly at all. Now, Inio Asano, between these 3 works, has one thing in common. They all feature sex, and God, I love sex. Sex is so cool. Sometimes Asano writes sex to steer off the plot, mostly in Punpun. Like when Punpun did the nasties with his uncle's girlfriend, or when his uncle did the nasties with his ex-girlfriend when a high schooler is in his closet, or when Punpun tried to sexually assault some girl, or just stirring the plot as quickly and as intensely as possible. And sex can also be done in a casual way. Inio Asano also writes a lot of casual sex. Every sex scene in Dead is like this, for better or worse. Futaba doing with dudes in college that don't deserve shit shows that Futaba doesn't have her life together as much as she wants to claim to. Or Kadobe doing it once with his teacher just to have that closure. They're obviously very casual there, but Asano also likes to write sort of wholesome sex scenes. Like when Punpun did it for the first time with Nanjo, even though it was sort of casual, but those were 2 people who just really need a dick and in the right place in the right time. Or Punpun finally doing it with Aiko. Two people who are madly in love with each other finally being honest about it. And of course Soranin, when Meiko and Taneda do it. It's all just very wholesome. All this to say is that all the sex scenes that Inio Asano writes isn't smut. Isn't just a sex scene because he just wants to put a sex scene. It's well written and fits the plot like a glove. If there's a sign that tells me that I need to have sex, at the bare minimum, right, I need to have sex to just be a better video essayist. Also, another thing, Inio Asano is like a great lyricist. Like, he makes good songs. Punpun doesn't have a song, but Dedede and Soranin has songs written specifically for them. Soranin is unironically one of the best Annie songs of all time. I don't know how, but Asano has somehow convinced Asian Kung Fu generation to sing Soranin. I mean, one of the most greatest Annie song bands of all time. The live action sort of sucks in trying to implement the final concert scene, but if you listen or the Asian Kung Fu generation song while reading through that concert scene, it just makes sense. It just gets you into the right mood. It's a really good song. You know what sort of pisses me off though? Japan fucking fears in putting music in Spotify early. Dedede's opening is so good and I've been hyped up for it ever since I listened to it for the first time. It's being sung by Ano, the girl from Yao Asabi, and Ilias Ikuta, who voices Kadobe. The complete song is nowhere. Like, you can't find it on YouTube, definitely can't find it in Spotify. And I want that End of the World song too. When the world is literally exploding, there's a song there written by Asano. Where is it? Where's the complete version of it? Release the damn song. Why does Japan do this? I know it exists. I mean, I guess we'll just jam out to the inferior ending for now. I think they should adapt Oyasumi Punpun one of these days. I know it's gonna be tough, probably won't make much money in merchandising, and the show sort of needs to be adapted as a full adaptation. There's not really room to make a season 1 or season 2. But you sort of have to adapt something like that, right? It's so critically acclaimed. And I've sort of given up on having a good adaptation for Soranin because the live action exists. Some people like it, so even though it's ass. And then at the end of the day, I just want people to give credit to Inio Asano for what he truly is. One of the best writers of our generation. Who's better than Fujimoto, by the way.